Hey there, welcome back to my video series. We're getting towards the end of this Pokemon style game that I'm making, and in this video we're going to wrap up our GUI or graphical user interface. Let's get to it. So let's start by opening up our sample scene again, and we're going to make a GUI. So let's go UI Toolkit, UI document, similar to what we did for our start screen called GUI. Then go to the UI Toolkit folder, and we are going to take a copy of our start menu so we don't have to do this a whole bunch of more times. And then we're going to rename that copy to GUI as well. There we go. And that should give us a nice file that is the same as the start menu, obviously, which we can then double click. Or actually, before we double click it, we're going to go to the GUI, make sure our panel settings are still there because we want them to be the same, and then drop this one in to the source asset. All right, once we've done that though, we can double click it and it will open in the UI builder. As you'll see, the screen has jumped to this really tiny size. So we can fix that by clicking on the UXML and set the width and height for default to 1920 by 1080. So that'll be consistent as we're scaling up and down using those panel settings. And we end up in this space. So what am I going to do next is I'm going to add a different type of container. A little hard to see right now. I'm going to add a group box. So there you go. And I'm going to take that call to action, move it into the group box as a child, and remove the visual element. So that'll clean everything right up. I'm going to name the group box timer. I'm going to rename the call to action to time, because we're going to use this to indicate the amount of time that the player has spent in the level. So let's say there's 48 seconds on the clock, just as a reference. So there you go. And yeah, so what I want to do next is click on timer, click on flex, and make sure that it resizes itself throughout the entire screen. Then a line for its child objects can be on the right. And then on the time itself, we're going to add a little bit more margin, 12 and 12 to the right and top. So that will make it look like that. And with all that, we can click on scene, click on play, and hopefully everything is working correctly. And we see the number 48 in the corner here. So yep, let's look into animating this now using a little script. So to create that script, we are going to go to our scripts. And in here, we're going to create a new C# script with a very stereotypical name, GUI Manager. There we go. We're going to use it to manage our GUI. And once Unity is done reloading the script assemblies and asking us to hold on, we're just going to drag that in there. And then that script's hooked up. We can double click it and we will find ourselves back into write. Oh, happy day. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do something similar to what we did with the start screen. We are going to create some variables to grab control of the various elements that we just created. So we're going to create a private group box and a label that are going to be called group box and time. Now it looks like there is a little bit of an issue here because this is not supposed to turn red. So let me see again, why is this not popping up? Okay, so it is something from Groupbox Unity UI elements. So I'm going to double click this and okay, it looks like there is multiple things that this could mean. And we want to actually add Unity UI elements up here, and that will just fix that. Usually Writer does that for me. So I'm going to do this manually now. And by adding this code, we will add this namespace to this class, and we will actually be able to access these classes. So interesting that that just happened. I don't know really why, but yeah, it's a little quirky. We're also going to make a connection for our level manager because we're going to need it at some point. And again, be careful with what is capitalized and what's not. I should probably have given the less confusing name, but this is all lowercase and this one has capitalization. So with that in mind, we want to go into our start method and we want to grab a hold of the root, which is a visual element always. So visual element root is going to be equal to get component. Let's see here. Okay. Come on, here we go. Get component, and it's a UI document that we're looking for, and we're going to grab the root visual element out of there. Right, so then we get a hold of that. Next up, we're going to grab that timer. So we're going to set timer GB is going to be root.q. And this time we're going to be looking for a group box. And that group box name is going to be timer. Lovely. Similarly, we are going to set time to root q, and that's not a group box, that was a label. So we need to change this to label. All right, and the name of the label is going to be, no, the name of the label is going to be time. All right, wonderful. So with that, we now have control over these things. And actually, while I'm at it, I might as well add the level manager thing as well. So the level manager is going to be game object.find level manager. So this is with a space because that's the element that we have in our scene, and it is going to be one of the level manager class, and that should give us a level manager. All right, so the first thing that we need to do now, and that's why I hooked up the level manager as well, is I would like to set that time, the text of the time, so time text to the, well, what is left from the level manager. So let's do level manager dot end time minus level manager dot current time. So this way we don't have to make new variables for anything. Now this is not gonna work well because this is a text, this is a string, and these are floats, I believe. Yeah, they're both floats. So we need to convert the floats to a string as well, which we can do like so. And Unity allows you to format it in any kind, in a whole number kind of ways. The one that I want to use doesn't have any decimals, so that looks like that. So that's how that works. Now, one of the cool things is if you want to know, like, hey, where did you get the text thing? Well, you can always look at your Unity editor. And if we look at the builder, once this has done loading, all right, if we look at the UI builder and we select the little bit of the time here, we can see text, the variable is actually literally right there. And all the other ones are going to be there as well. For instance, later on, I think we're going to be using display to show things and hide things. So you'll see display is here, visibility, overflow, so forth. A whole bunch of settings that you can all access through, well, Writer will try to auto fill whatever you're typing, as we've been doing plenty of times, right? So let's see if this script is working for us now. Let's do a little test here. So let's open up our scene. And as you can see, it looks like it's working fine. We're counting down the 15 seconds that we set in our level manager. And once those seconds are up, I'm gonna walk around. We'll see that it will stop the game and we would get control of our mouse cursor. So that is absolutely perfect. That's what we wanted. Great. So next up, what I will want to do is I want to make a messaging system that is going to communicate with the player when they capture a Pokemon, when it's game over, and all the stuff that we were pretty much doing here in the logger. So to set that up, there's a couple of options. We could make another UXML page and make our code swap out the source assets, but I already called this thing GUI, and I kind of just want to keep everything into one of these UXML. So I'm not going to really mess with the file. I'm not going to make any more files. I'm just going to make more elements in here, and like the timer one, that's going to be one of my pages, and I'm going to make another group box just right now, if I can find it at least, and drop it in there. And I'm going to play around with the visibility of these things so that we can just swap them out as if they're pages, so I don't have to swap out the files. Now, if we were to make a bigger project than this one, this might not be the best way of doing this. But then again, for a small project like this, I think it's absolutely fine. And, you know, a lot of the times it's personal preference. So this one is going to be called the messaging system. I'm going to call it report because we're reporting back to the player. And first thing that I'm going to do is this timer is working fine. I am just going on display, and I'm going to set that to not being displayed at all. So now the report is taking over the entire space, and we're gonna set the settings for the flex as well so that it literally is taking over the entire space. So that's all really nice. So what we're gonna do now is I wanna have some messages on the top and some messages at the bottom. So on the top, I wanna have a title and a couple of lines of text. And then at the bottom, I wanna be able to put a button so the player can get back to their menu. So to do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make 2 more group boxes. And you know, this is all just somewhat personal preference on how you wanna do these things. So if you wanna set these things up differently, you could absolutely do this differently. I think this is going to work fine for my purpose. So I'm going to have one at the top, and then I'm going to have one at the bottom, and I'm going to name them similarly. Top GB, GB standing for group box, and bottom GB. And within the top one, I'm also going to group up a bunch of labels. So I'm going to call this one, let's see, maybe message GB. That'd be a good one because I'm already using report. So that's the group box for the messages. And in there, we are going to, let's open this up a little bit. I'm going to copy the time. I'm going to paste, paste, paste. Get rid of this and just drop it in here like so, one under another as child objects. So yeah, that's kind of the structure that I'm going to do. And you see that there's a whole bunch of weird stuff happening here, but we're going to look into that just in a bit. But first, I'm going to clean up these group boxes. So with the report itself, I want my align to be towards the middle for everything that's in there. It's not really changing that much because these things are in different group boxes. And then for the top GB, let me see here. I want to do a size. I want it to take up about 50% of the screen. So I'm going to put 50% in there. And as you can see, that worked out pretty well. So for the bottom one, I'm going to do the same thing. Set it to percentage and set it to 50. And then the bottom is taking up 50% of the screen as well. I'm also going to, in the top GB, let's see, nope, this is all looking the way I wanted it to look. So yeah, this is fine for now, I think. So next I'm going to change the alignment, and I'm going to select all of these things. Oh, multi-selection isn't allowed, but we're going to set all of these to align. I had a little bit of some weird things happening when I tried to do that, so I'm just going to put all of them to the middle alignment. That's what I actually meant. And we are also going to select message GB, and we're going to go into the margins and the padding. Or actually, no, we're going to use position for this. And we're going to go about 20% from the top. That'll drop it down a little bit. And then in the time, so well, let's change these names first. So the first time I want to call title. All right. The second one I'm going to call line 1. All right. And the last one, ooh, Control Z here. I accidentally misclicked. I'm going to call line 2. So I'll have a title and 2 lines that I can just use to mess with some text that I want to tell the player. And maybe it's better to set the text to whatever the variables are right away as well, so it's easy to see which is which. Now, this will not change anything with the code, of course. So, but just to make it a little bit clearer. And then we're going to go into the text, and we're going to set these to, I think, 36. Well, that's a little small. Let's do 48. Okay. And then this one here as well. Let's put that at 48. Right. So yeah, I think this looks all right. So we can pass some text along to this and communicate with our player that way. So yeah, looking good. One more thing in the bottom, I'm going to add something as well that we haven't seen yet, and it's going to be a button. Now the question is, where is my button? Here we go, a button. So we're going to drop it into the bottom, the button into the bottom GB as a child, and we're going to put a little bit of an effort in to make that button look a bit prettier. So let's start with giving the thing a name. Let's call it, this is a button to return to the menu, so I'm just going to call it that. And we're just going to call this button return, so it's easier to memorize what the name is that is on there. Let's not make any typos. Also, when you press tab in here, it will actually tap, and you might see weird stuff happening in here, so be careful not to do that. Anyhow, so that puts our button right there. I think in button GB, we can go to the justify content and make it drop to the bottom. And then in the button itself, we'll give it a position change, maybe about 20% is a good one, to make it go up a little bit further. And that looks a lot nicer already. So then we're going to look at our font, and we're going to hook up the same fonts we have been using the entire time. So let's hook up Lemon Days. That's fine. And then for the size, 48 like the other, maybe a little bit on the big side. Did I do 32 for the other ones? I don't remember. But for the color, I know it was up here somewhere. FFCC00 was what we were using. I mean, I could look it up, but I don't feel like looking this up. It's not that important. Then we can do the background of the button. What kind of color was that again? Oh, I think 002277, was that it? So yeah, we got a nice blue button for that. I like to round the corners a bit. So if we select the border and we give it a radius of 10 pixels, it'll have a neat little corner. There we go. So I think this is a nice looking little menu, right? And what we need to do in the code now is if we open up the displays for both of them, so when both of the displays are on, it's going to look atrocious. So we're going to manage the displays like so to swap them in and out so that they're never active at the same time. And then we're going to feed the data that we want to display into the variable, into the different elements as content. So let's get back to Writer. All right, and back in Writer, we're gonna have to grab a whole bunch of things. So we're gonna grab our group box, and the group box this time is gonna be called ReportGB. Oh, whoops, yep. And then we are going to set up our labels. So private label, I need to capitalize it, and I'm gonna call this one title label. There we go. And then I'm going to do some copy pasting, and this one is going to be line 1, and this one is going to be line 2. We could set up an array for this, but honestly this is going to be so much faster than doing all that stuff. So we're going to do return button as well, which is a button class, and I think this should give us access over everything, at least if we go up in here and we start hooking all these things up as well. So let's put a space in between so it's clear what's where. And then we are, well, actually, let's just copy paste this and make life easier on ourselves. So this is going to be ReportGB. Now, as you are doing this, make sure to copy the right things over, because it's really easy to just, if you leave timer in here, nothing's going to work. All right, so then we have the title label, and that is going to be title, and then we can do the other ones. And actually something cool you can do is if you hold down the Alt button on your keyboard and you scroll down, you can select multiple lines in Writer or in any proper text editor and select them like so. And that's really cool because then you can just do line. And yeah, like that'll just, ta-da! Cool, right? Anyways, so line 1, line 2, it's more useful for other stuff, and most of the time, you should probably just do a loop whenever you are typing the same stuff over and over. Not in this scenario though. So anyways, let's start with putting some code on that button so we can go back and forth in our menu. And we're gonna go for the clicked action that is associated with a button. Now, you can't just say like, whenever the button is clicked, like the clicked action for the button is equal to something. That's not gonna work. You need to, I can demonstrate it, but if you write any method here, let's say we call it return button pressed, which is a good name for a method, it's gonna lead to an error because you can't just have one thing in there. It's an array that you're filling up basically. So you need to write plus equals to, and then it'll actually work out. Now, obviously it's not working just yet because there is a method that's undefined. So how about we define that method and move forward with it? So that method is going to be, let me check my notes real quick to see if this is a method that needs to be public or not. No, it can be absolutely private. So that's great. So private void return button pressed. Button pressed. There we go. And the code for this is something that you should be able to figure out on your own right now. It's similar to what we've done earlier. So you're going to go grab the scene manager. We're going to load scene. And the scene that we want to load is going to be, let's see, scene start. Whenever that button gets clicked. Alrighty, so that is some code to get us a button, and when we click it, it will load our scene start again. So that's great. Let's get rid of this thing here. So what do I want to do next? Because these are all events that are going to happen, of course, when a lot of things are going on, and I'd rather just keep coding a little bit and then just test everything in one go, because this is not exactly too complicated. So I think what we want to do is we want to show our report. We want to report to the player. So how should we do that? Well, ReportToPlayer is something that we want to run from our, let's see, where is the Explorer, Asset Scripts, from our level manager, I believe. So what we want to do is we want to, we want to replace these. We want to say, hey, you captured a PsyDuck. Whoops, a PsyDuck escaped. So success, that could be the title. You capture a PsyDuck, that could be line 1. So let's add some code that would allow us to do that. And I'm going to call, I'm going to make a method for that. And I'm going to call that method ReportToPlayer, like so. And it's going to take a string for the title, a string for line 1, and a string for line 2, like so. And then we want to have a certain amount of time, so a float time, for the amount of time that we want to display this on our screen. So I think that looks pretty neat. So what we're going to do is, well, whenever we're reporting to the player, the first thing we want to do is we want to remove our timer. And to remove our timer, we need to mess with the visibility. Now, I think it would be easier for us to make a little function that will allow us to get and set the display of the different, well, what are they called again? The different group boxes. Why would I want to do that? Well, the code actually, so let's say that we want to make the display of that group box for the timer. Let's say we want to set that to not being displayed, right? So then we would have to go timer GB, and you could go like display, but it doesn't exist. And I looked into this a little bit, and I was looking at, okay, in Writer, okay, what are the different options that we have here? There must be something. And I was like, style. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Display is actually a cascading style sheets, a CSS term. So it's probably the style thing that is associated. So we would have to go do dot style, and then does display exist? Yes, great, display exists. So then that's going to be equal to, and well, then first I was true. I went with true, but that gave me an error. And then I looked at display, and display actually is an enumerator for display style. So I'm like, oh, you can't set this to true or false. You need to set this to an enumerator. So that enumerator is display style. So we could pull that up, and then we need to set it to, there's no option for true or false. It's either flex or none. So the line for basically what I was hoping the line would be timer JB and then display equals true. It's not going to do anything. Like, I mean, right now it's coming up green, but you know, you can already see that it's showing problems. You cannot implement iResolve style display directly. So this is an issue that this will not work. So the code that we need to run is going to be this. And I think this is way too lengthy to just keep typing over and over and over. So what I am going to do instead is I am going to create 2 methods for this, a getter and a setter. You know, I haven't really been using getters and setters in the classes that we've been setting up because this is a small project that's not really meant to be extended. So I'm not too concerned about software engineering right now. But, you know, for this purpose, I think it's good to have something that can just take care of it. So we're going to make a private method called setDisplay that's going to take a group box, and that's going to have a Boolean true or false for displaying. So if we get a true Boolean in here, we are going to display. Otherwise, guess what? We're not going to display. And then we're going to grab this line here, and we're going to do this, but instead of timer JB, because we want to use it for both group boxes, we're just going to do that. There we go. And here it's going to be none instead of flex. There we go. So this is a much easier way, because now we can just type setDisplay, the name of the group box, true or false, and that's going to be much easier code to read. Similarly, whenever we want to know if a group box has been set, I am going to use a getter method. So it's going to be called getDisplay, and it's going to grab group box JB. There we go, like so. And we're going to do a condition if, and our condition is going to be if, let's put that in here. If the display is that enumerator value, display style.flex, then we're going to return true. And otherwise, we return false. And we don't have to put an else statement in there because there is no point in doing that. All right. Yeah, I think this should be fine. I'm not entirely sure why this is happening, but okay. Oh yeah, of course. So if you ever run into something that doesn't make sense according to Writer, click on the, well, on the icon that you have here, whatever it is, and here it'll immediately will tell you like, hey, this code is unreachable, and like, why is this code unreachable? And if you look at your code, then like, oh yeah, I copy pasted the semicolon. So there you go. Thanks, Writer. That saves me a lot of time trying to figure out what was wrong. So now we have a getter and a setter for whether or not a group box is being displayed or not, which is going to be pretty convenient for the function that we're going to be writing here, ReportToPlayer, because we can start with it right away. All right, anyway, so when we're reporting to the player, we want to do some set displays. So set display, and the one that when we're reporting to the player, we want that timer to just disappear for a second. So we're going to set that to false. And we are going to set our report to true. Oh dear. Like so. All right. And next up, we are going to bring in all the information. So title label.text equals to title. And I'm going to fast forward here in a second because, you know, now I'm just going to do line 1 label text, line 2 label text, title label, visible, true, line, you know, mess around with all of them. So I'm just going to fast forward really quickly, and the result of that is something that you can see right now. So yeah, with that, you know, we just set some stuff visible, invisible, and we made sure that the text is set everywhere. Even for the text button here, I decided to just add it just for consistency, right? So whatever we're putting in here when we're putting out our reports is just going to fill this up. Now, the one thing that I want to do after that is we are doing the float time thingy there. So we are going to do invoke here. And we are going to hide our report again after a certain amount of time so that it's not constantly hovering there as the player is just trying to play. So that's what we're going to use time for. Now we still need to make that hide report function. So let's, or method, so let's make that one next. So that's going to be private void hide report. All right. And pretty much what the hide report is going to be doing is the opposite of this here. So we're going to grab this like so. And now we are setting the timer back to true, and we are setting the report to false, and that will hide our report after the time has passed here. The only other thing that we want to do is if we already have a report going on, whenever you invoke, you want to look at that condition. You know, what would happen if it already has been invoked for some reason. So let's say we have already a report GB going on because we just got a Pokemon. We saw 2 Pokemon, and we just like 1 ball, 2 balls, and like boom, we have both of them in there, and they both kind of, you know, generate this report quickly right after one another. So if we run into an issue like that, we just want to cancel it, and we just want to, you know, we just want to leave it up, and the code will take care of the rest. So that's fine. All right. So high report, like, yeah, so this looks like a fine method to report to the player. We have a method for when our button is being pressed. We can set displays. Yeah, I mean, I think all of this is looking pretty good. The only thing that we want to do here is with the update. We don't need to update this when our report is actually active. So what we can do now is we can just go get display. And just thinking of all these use cases, like usually you want to draw up a UML or something just to figure out what you're, because yeah, I might forget something, but I think, you know, I mean, I prepare these games before I actually start coding, obviously. So yeah, I think this should kind of cover it. So if we already have a report up, we don't need to update the time. That's fine. So with that, not much to test yet, because this is basically just a big script, and we might have made a mistake somewhere, but let's hope not. But we can move on and get into our level manager now, where we can start by replacing all the logs with reports to player and see where that takes us. So what we can do here is let's maybe do the one where we run out of time, because that one happens a lot. So those are the end conditions, right? So let's go here, and now what we can do is write oh wait, we haven't got the GUI yet, and that's why I turned orange instead of green. So what we want to do is we want to make sure, and we go up here, and that we get ourselves a private GUI Manager, because that's the name of the class we created, called GUI, and then that is going to be green. And after our end time, I don't think it matters where we're putting this as long as it's in start. GUI game object dot find GUI get component, GUI Manager. There we go. And that will take care of all that, and now we can actually access the GUI. Now, what we could have done here with all these variables that we're passing around, we could have set up a global variable through a singleton design pattern. I'll provide you with some additional information on how that would work in the further readings, but I think for a simple game like this will work just fine, just passing this around and just storing it in one place, even though it's an object rather than a global. But anyways, let's call a ReportToPlayer function here, and let's start copying this stuff over. So first off, we have our title. So let's our title be well done. And then our line 1, I believe, is coming up. Yep, string line 1. That can be, let's see, you capture, oh, actually, let me just copy paste it. So here we go. And the reason is maybe something that we can put on the second line. So let's do, you have captured amount of Pokemon caught. And then what's going on here? We need a comma line 2. Here we go. And well, actually, this could just be reason. If we input reason correctly, I think this might actually work straight out the gate. Yeah, so well done. Let's get rid of this. And we can test this immediately because it'll only take 15 seconds for the game to get there. So let's do this. And this was the one, was this the PsyDuck? Which one equals 1? So here, PsyDucks. And well, actually, if the reason is going on line 2, we can set it up that way. Oh, we still need to add a time. That's why it's... well, actually, we don't need a time for this because it's the end of the game. This is never going to go away. All right, back to the GUI Manager. So what we can do with that is, so it looks like for ReportToPlayer, we're going to have, we're going to want to overload this function. Why? Well, because we have a ReportToPlayer that's going to happen at the end of the game where we don't need a time variable. And there is going to be one where we do need a time variable when it's in the middle of the game and we're just saying like, hey, you captured a Pokemon. So let's make a copy of this. And as long as we have different arguments in C#, we will overload it. So what we can do here is we don't need time. That's fine. And this is what happens if there is a time. So down here, we want to cancel. I think we can keep that, but we don't need to do any of this stuff. And we don't need to deal with any of the, yeah, with anything else. Like we'll deal with this method, with the overload method in a bit. But let's go back to, what is it, our level manager here. And yeah, so now the lines are gone and everything looks like it's fine. Expensive method invocation, okay, that's good to know. So this is an expensive function or an expensive method. So yeah, well, I don't think it's too important for the scale of this game, whether it's expensive or not. So let's move on to the game and let's just have time run out. But unfortunately, it looks like we can't convert from void to a string. So let's see, where is this happening? Did I write, let's see. Oh yeah, we've made this mistake before again. Whenever you do an invoke, you don't write the full method, and it's actually kind of confusing because writer seems to mess that up, or at least in the version that I have. So the cancel invoke needs to be a string, not a void, or well, the method, but the method is going to output a void. So let's do hide report again. There we go. So we got hide report, hide report, hide report. So yeah, now that issue should be gone. So we can go back in here. Let's reload everything and hopefully it'll compile. It should compile now. And then we can press play and 15 seconds later. Oh, okay. There seems to be a couple of issues going on. Let's solve those. Well, actually, it's not that many issues. It's just I put report GB in here instead of timer GB. So I was checking if the report was on display, which it shouldn't be. If when the timer's on display, you want to update this. So I'm sure somebody saw me do this while I was doing it. But yeah, be careful. These things can get real tricky from time to time. So yeah, with all that in mind, let's actually, because we had so much output going on as well. Let's see, where are we? Are we still reporting the time in the log? Here. Let's get rid of this line because that's just annoying. We don't want to output the current time anymore. And then we can go back to Unity. All right, press play. Let's see what happens. All right, so another null reference. Well, that happens when you code too much in one go. But then again, sometimes in a tutorial series, it can be helpful to show you how debugging is done in action, especially when it's a very introductory series like this one. So just going to double click this, see where that brings us. And yeah. I mean, yeah, I already see what's the issue here. We never declared this. We never made this anything else, but it's default value of null. So we need to declare this. So it's similar to the line labels. So in this case, it's going to be a return button. That's our name. And let's not forget to make sure that the query is looking for, not return, for a button with the name of return though. There we go. And that should fix that issue. And actually, while I'm at it, I think it might not be a bad idea to make sure, well, actually, let's clean this up as well and put the level manager at the top. But before we start everything, make sure that we are starting with the right displays active. So let's do set display, and let's set the report to false, like so. And let's set the timer to true. To true. There. And that should, yeah, so okay. Yeah, now everything seems to be working. So just some minor issues, but yeah. And well, actually, let's see what happens once we hit our time. Well done, you have captured 0 PsyDucks before time ran out. Return to start. Let's see if the button works. The button works. And we can get back into the game. We're restarting. We have a nice little menu. That looks lovely. I'm gonna let it do it one more time. Like, I find that, you know, when you're trying these things out, it's best, even if it works the first time, sometimes you just want to do it again a time. So yeah, looking neat. Actually, does it work? Does it update if we could catch the Pokemon? There we go. If we would, okay, never mind. Let's just move on, because we certainly have some more work left to do. So let's see, we went down here, we updated this so that we were reporting. And well, since we're using the reason, that worked. And actually, I think, yep, down here we're doing that as well. So before time ran out, which we actually already tested, and before they all escape, both of these should work because it's the same format. We just need to do the message here. So this is another report message. So this is going to be a GUI, and this is what we're going to use the overload function for. So ReportToPlayer, and ReportToPlayer, the title is going to be success, right? And then our first line is going to be, I don't know, amount of Pokemon remaining is probably a good one. Plus remaining. There we go. And then 2 seconds or so, we can just, oh, that's line 2. Okay, so yeah, I would just want to remove this in 2 seconds. We could say there's this many Pokemon left, but then we have to do this thing with the grammar. I don't really want to do that. Let's go to our GUI Manager, to the overload function. So this is the function we're already using. You can tell because it's purple. This is the one we aren't using yet. And in this one, we're not going to use a line 2. We're just going to go straight to float time, which means that this is not relevant, and we can set the visibility of line 2 to false. And we can set the visibility of the button false as well, because we're not going to be using that. The text, not relevant, I guess. So I think that's a reasonable way of doing this. That should absolutely work fine. We still want to do the hide report thing. That all makes sense. False, like, yep, I'm not seeing any issues with this right now. So this will be our overload function. And the big difference is with this one, we have a second line. It will never go away. With this one, we don't have a second line, but we will make it disappear after a while. So if we go in here, same function name, and now it says time instead of line 2 there, which is great. So we can remove this. There we go. Add this thing. Whoops, one escaped. So whoops. Or like, yeah, let's be more clear about this to our player. PsyDuck, a PsyDuck escaped. I mean, it's all going to be capitalized anyway. So a PsyDuck escaped. This many Pokemon remaining. Remove that after 2 seconds as well. Yeah, no, I think this is fine. Yeah, let's see what this looks like in game. Now to test this, we are going to bring out a couple more PsyDuck, and we're gonna increase the timer too. So first off, let's increase the timer maybe, and let's go to our level manager, Set the timer to 60 seconds. That's a good test time. That is going to force us to do the script assemblies again. And then we can bring in some additional Pokemon to catch. Some PsyDuck. PsyDuck, can't wait to add audio to this. Honestly, it's going to be awesome. Let's have 4 PsyDucks. And let's see what that does for us. All right. 60 seconds. Let's see how many I can get. All right, let's get that one. There was one down here. Let's make sure he doesn't see me. I'm missing that one, that shot. Success, 3 remaining. All right. 45 seconds on the clock. Oh, that stupid rock just took away all my momentum. That's too much. Run into it, PsyDuck. Oh, these guys are harder to hit. Okay, we got one here. Where's the other one? Here we go. Success, 2 remaining. Yeah, it's only a 1 in 10 chance that they are going to escape it. But it looks like the code is working fine. Maybe it would be a little bit more convenient, but I kind of like how clunky this is. So we got 3. Can I get number 4 before? Oh no, I got stuck in a bush. Success, 1 remaining. Oh my god, I can't. Oh, I missed it. I missed the final shot. Ah, still got him, but that's not going to do it. Yep, I captured 3 PsyDucks before time ran out. Great. Return to start. Return to the game. Just to feel better about myself. Let's hit another one. Okay, never mind. Well, boy, oh boy, that was quite entertaining to me already. So I think, yeah, this game's coming along pretty nicely. I think we got one major thing left to do, and that's audio. Get this game a little bit of atmosphere and make it play and sound good. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next video. Hope to see you there. Bye-bye.